so we're going to continue working with radicals. We're going to multiply, but just a refresher, again, for our radical expressions, we want to make sure no radicands have perfect square factors other than 1. We want to make sure no radicands contain fractions, and that there aren't any radicands in the denominator as we work. All right, so let's multiply with radicals. So we're going to simplify each of these expressions. I have 2 radical 3 plus 4 radical 5. This is our distributive property basically. I'm going to do 2 times radical 3, and I'm going to do 2 times 4 radical 5. 2 times 4 gives me 8 radical 5. So I end up with 2 radical 3 plus 8 radical 5. I don't have any perfect square factors in those radicands, so I'm done. All right, we've got a binomial times a binomial here, so basically I am going to use my FOIL for this one. So I'm going to do first times first. I'm going to do 2 times 2, which gives me 4. I'm going to do my outer. 2 times 4 radical 2, which gives me 2 times 4 is 8. So I end up with 8 radical 2. Again, that radical kind of works like a variable. If you think of it like it's an x, kind of imagine it works like that. I'm going to do my inner. So I'm going to do negative 4 radical 2 times 2, which gives me negative 8 radical 2. And then I'm going to do my last, negative 4 radical 2 times positive 4 radical 2. Negative times positive is a negative. 4 times 4 is 16. Radical 2 times radical 2 is just plain old 2. So when I simplify this, I get 4. Now my 8 radical 2 minus my 8 radical 2 leaves me with nothing. Those cancel each other out. And then I have 16 times 2, which is 32, so minus 32. So I end up with 4 minus 32, which equals negative 28. And if you really look at this, this looks a lot like our product of a difference and square. Product of a sum and a difference. I've got a sum and a difference. Remember, that ended up being kind of my difference of squares. So same pattern there that we've seen before. All right, let's try a couple more. We're going to square this binomial. So again, just a reminder that when I'm squaring something, it means that I'm multiplying it by itself. So please don't get lazy here and do radical 3 times itself, radical 6 times itself, and move on with your day. Please remember this is a binomial times a binomial, so I really do want to work through that FOIL again. So I'm going to do first, radical 3 times radical 3 gives me radical 9. Outer, radical 3 times radical 6 gives me radical 18. Inner, radical 6 times radical 3 gives me 18 again. And last, radical 6 times radical 6 gives me radical 36. I want to simplify these. Remember, I don't want to leave any perfect square factors inside my radical signs. So radical 9 is just plain old 3. Radical 18 has a perfect square factor of 9 in there, so I pull that out, and that's left with 2 radical 8. Actually, sorry, I'm not simplifying that yet. I'm just combining these like terms at this point. So I've got 2 of them, so we'll call that 2 radical 18. And then I've got the perfect square of 36, which is 6. Now I can combine, I've got 3 and 6, which is 9. I'm going to simplify this. Radical 18 has a perfect square factor of 9 in it, so when I pull that out, I've got square root of 3 times 2, which gives me 6, which leaves me radical 2 inside. And the last one to work with, again, another binomial times a binomial here. So I'm going to do FOIL. First, I end up with 2 radical 36. Outer, I end up with 4 times radical 18. Inner, I end up with negative radical 540. I had to use my calculator for that one. And last, I end up with a negative 2 radical 270. Again, I have my handy-dandy calculator right here, because those are pretty big. All right, now I'm going to simplify each of these ones to take out any perfect square factors. So 36, square root of 36 is 6, so I end up with 12 here. 18 has that 9 I can pull out again. So 3 times 4 gives me 12 with a radical 2 left over. 540, I had to do a little bit of work for that one. 540 is 36 times 15. I had to play around with that one a while to find it. So I end up pull out a 6, and I'm left with 6 radical 15 there. Minus 2, 270, same thing. I've got a 9 in there. Nothing else I can do with 30, so pull square root of 9 out, which is 3. 3 times 2 gives me minus 6 radical 30. So I'm left with 12 plus 12 radical 2 minus 6 radical 15 minus 6 radical 30. So just following the steps, just following the rules, very straightforward, one step at a time. Take your time with it. You'll be fine.